Hey, what's going on, Los Angeles? Welcome into the Rams Skinny here on the LAFB network. We are Los Angeles Sports, talking all things Rams, welcoming my main man, new location, same location, new room, I guess, in the rainy confines of Los Angeles. Mr. Skinny T, what's up, brother? How you doing?
I'm doing good. Yeah, you gotta switch it up occasionally.
Yeah,
So
keep me on my toes.
I'm about 15 feet from where I usually record in a different room, but say, new digs, same great flavor, I
There we
guess.
go. Love that. Love that. So, yeah, another rainy day. I got a run in though. I snuck a run in the drizzle. I was proud of myself. I actually ran in the drizzle. I'm trying to stick with it. Trying to get on your level.
Yeah. Well, let's launch our new venture, Los Angeles Fan Base Network Run Club, starting
Yes.
off at maybe the Greyhound on
Yeah.
Figueroa. I don't know.
We
Couple
have
of
I already made shirts, even though we haven't even launched. We have shirts already. The LAFB Run Club. So for any runners out there in the LA area, we're planning hopefully super casual like this summer. Maybe we'll do like a meetup a month. Make it easy. Meet up at a bar. Go run a few miles and then throw back some cocktails afterwards.
Sounds like a great time.
Would love to see some Angelinos out there with us. So we'll announce it. It's been loosely, but we made shirts already, so I'll post them in the link. I need to order one still. I haven't even ordered one yet.
I got to do that too.
I
Does it
know.
come in
Yep.
maroon? I wanted it in maroon for some reason.
I do have a maroon option.
Perfect.
Yes, or it might technically be. I know this is not even close to maroon. It might be cardinal, for like USC colors, but I don't know. I'll look. If not, I think I can add maroon
All
just
right.
for you, Skinny. Just for you. So some big Rams news, as there always is. Rams already very active, and free agency starts next week. But they re-signed one of their receivers, shocking to most. So we will talk about that. Plus, Les Snead had a press conference. Was that yesterday? This
Yeah,
week already seems so
just
long.
yesterday.
Just yesterday on Wednesday. Today is Thursday of this recording. Kind of just breaking down the off season and their plans around some certain positions and just kind of what free agency and the draft would look like. So we'll dive into a little bit of that as well. Show, as always, brought to you by our friends at BetOnline. Head to betonline.ag today or just before any game starts, and you can get a wager on all of those games that you can think of. So you got Dodgers spring training, the Tokyo series coming up. Now that we cover the Dodgers, I'm like pumped for Dodgers baseball being back. Like I've never really been, everyone knows this. I don't hide anything. Like I'm from Colorado. Like usually my fanhood relies or is still with the Colorado teams, and the Rockies. There is never anything to be excited about. I mean, their season's over by like the second week of the season. And the Dodgers, I didn't like hate them since they lived here, but they were a rival of the Rockies. But now that we cover them, I'm like pseudo Dodger fan, pretty pumped. Like reigning World Series champs. We got the Tokyo series against the Cubs. Anyway, long-winded way of saying like all that you can bet on. Bet online. The Kings trade deadline's tomorrow for the NHL. The door was just shut on Mikko Rantanen coming to LA. Bummed about that. Would have been
Sure.
fun. But the Kings, you can bet on those games. Lakers, obviously the hottest team in the NBA, second ranked team now in the Western Conference. I don't know who's going to slow them down. So it might be worth putting some money on them. I wonder what their odds are to win the NBA championship right now. I wonder if
Pretty
they're
good.
like,
It went up.
wonder,
It went up a lot when they got Luca.
yeah,
I mean, that's. I'm not just saying that. That's a real fact.
yeah, it's
True
just
fact.
science.
It's just science.
Just science. I'll try to find it while you're talking on the next segment, and I can just. But anyway, you can find those lines on BetOnline.ag to draft. If you want to stick to some Rams betting for all our Rams listeners, you can bet on some draft picks and props there. So BetOnline.ag, where the game starts. Tell them the guys over at the LAFB network sent you. Tutu Atwell. I don't know if I don't want to say disappointing. I'm happy for the guy. Like, everyone's working hard and deserves what they get. But I guess surprisingly, I think not just us, everyone kind of thought that his time as a Ram was done. Is re-signed, 1-year deal, 10 million, fully guaranteed contract. For those confused by the wording of some of the Schefter or Rappaport tweets out there, it was a 5 million guaranteed at signing, and then a 5 million base guaranteed contract. I don't know why they word it like that, but it's fully guaranteed, 10 million. So you're paying the guy 10 million bucks. Last year, I don't have it right in front of me, but career year, like 41 receptions, around a 500 yard receivings, no touchdowns. So before we kind of get into this signing and what this actually means for the Rams as they enter free agency next week, were you shocked by this? Are you happy about it? Are you upset? Or just like, what's your emotions on the 2-2 train remaining in Los Angeles?
Confused, I guess, is where I'm at. My cap number is what I need to see to know what it's actually how it's gonna affect the team build. That's always my big concern. 10 million guaranteed. Is that a 10 million cap hit? Is there a bonus? Probably 5 million cap hit since it's all guaranteed. But we've been saying it. I feel like for probably the last at least 6 months, what is his spot on this team?
Mm-hmm.
What role does he fill? And now at this higher price point, do you want to pay a number 4 receiver this much money when you could probably draft a guy when you already have drafted a guy in Jordan Whittington? That's where my confusion lies, is what do they see in this guy that the rest of us don't see in him? Obviously they tried to make him a 3. And he lost his job to Demarcus Robinson. So, we're paying $5 million against the cap before a number 4 receiver. I don't know why. I mean, you look at people in, the similar, let's say, price, average year, you're looking at Mike Williams. Jacoby Myers is making 11 million. He had 1,000 yards. Brandon Cooks, Adam Thielen, Curtis Samuel. These aren't they're not number 1s, but they're on the field a lot for their teams.
Mm-hmm.
And then you look at guys that are making less than him: Rashad Bateman, Kendrick Bourne, Juwan Jennings, Darius Slayton. Some of these are about to change as they're coming off their contracts. But you look at the free agent market for wide receivers, and it's just flooded with talent right now. I don't think, a lot of those guys that are going to be free agents are going to be number 1s, but you don't need a number 1.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it's just confusing. And so he does offer, he's not a complete wash, but is he going to move into that number 2 position with Cup off the team, or 3 position if Jordan Whittington features more heavily, or, so it's just confusing. I don't understand it.
Yeah, it's I think I don't have the math all in front of me, but it basically made him the 33rd highest paid receiver, somewhere around there.
Yeah. It's Mike Williams and Brandon Cooks are both making 10 million average per year. And they're 31, 32. So depending on where you want to stick them there.
Yeah. So in that 30 to 34 range, which, semantics, obviously NFL contracts are always different. Sometimes the best players in the league are still on rookie contracts. And so once they hit that second contract, which Tutu Atwell just did coming off his rookie deal, they're going to make more than they were as a rookie, unless they were potentially the first overall pick. So I get that's kind of a jaded argument, but still the numbers are the numbers. And now you're paying a guy who a career year was 41 catches for 500 yards, no touchdowns, and he's the 33rd highest paid receiver, meaning he should be a clear wide receiver too. If you think, obviously, again, we're pulling at straws here, but meaning if you have 32 number 1 receivers in the league, he would be the top number 2 receiver just based on those numbers. But he's not. So I don't have a problem with them bringing him back, because me and you have both have said this. We've always believed there could be a role for him with the style of player he is, with the speed that he brings. The reason why he was drafted. The question is we never saw that, and will we see that? And I've seen some people out there talking, and I'm not going to name any names because I don't want to act like I'm calling them out. But so they're like, well, they're paying him this much, so clearly they see him as a huge part of the offense, and now they have to use him because they're paying him this. Newsflash, unfortunately, the Rams have historically paid guys and still not used them. That's why we talked just last episode. What makes these organizations great is they realize a mistake and move on very quickly, but it also costs them a lot in dead cap and, buyer's remorse in a will. We've seen a lot. I'm trying to think down the Joe Noteboom is an easy example, right? Paid him. The guy never started as he was never a starter under this huge contract that he got. Jonah Jackson was, a very example based on injury and just fit and whatnot, but obviously paid him, didn't use him. Bobby Wagner was good, so it wasn't like he was bad, but paid him and then got rid of him after 1 year. So just because they decided to pay Tutu and make him the 33rd, I need to see evidence that he'll actually be utilized in that way. Now, hopefully, with this new transformation and with the soon coming trade or release of Cup, which we'll talk about, they do hopefully envision him with more time. I mean, it could have been simply you have Puka and Cup, and there just wasn't a spot for him to get on the field enough because they needed a different dimension. And, whether it was DeMarcus Robinson or Jordan Whittington, those two gave some little variance to what Puka and Cup could do. Not that Tutu's the same player, but in terms of size and in terms of just, keeping the defense honest, maybe it never was a fit in personnel packages. So maybe now without Cup, without DeMarcus Robinson, there can be more of a fit they're seeing. So I agree with you. I'm a little confused as well. I'm happy for him. I really hope it does work because obviously a second round pick drafted before guys like Nico Collins, like Amon-Ra St. Brown. And so you got to expect that not got to expect, but you would hope that he could live up somewhat to that level of play. But we just haven't seen it. And so usually a contract, especially one that's fully guaranteed, I know it's only 1 year, but usually it's based on merit or based on what you've done before, not just kind of like, well, we'll give you this much hoping you'll reach this level. And it feels like at this point, it's kind of like, oh, we'll give you all this just hoping you'll reach this level. But we haven't seen that. So I'm hopeful, fingers crossed, but yeah, definitely I'm with you. I'm a little confused by it.
Yeah, and you look at kind of some of the advanced metrics, and the questions get even bigger. So you think speed, field stretcher, get down the field really quickly. He's got a 12.2 ADOT, average depth of target. That's one of the deeper ones for the Rams receivers, but compared to other receivers, I mean, DeMarcus Robinson ended with a 16.8, one of the deepest average depths out there. Mm-hmm. Then you look at, well, like maybe he's not. Maybe he's just a guy that gets open, catches in the intermediate areas, but he's got no yards after the catch. And for a guy that's, sitting around 160, 5'8", 160, that's not surprising. So, it's, I mean, I haven't seen it. I don't understand it. I think they could have got somebody cheaper, draft pick, but you can't really put a price on that kind of speed. Now let's just see it in practice, and it's a 1 year contract, so mm-hmm. It could be a short-lived thing, but that's all I have to say about it.
Yeah, so that'll kind of lead into the next discussion. So does this, in your opinion, move mean they won't? I think no matter what, they'll draft a receiver in some round. It's just good practice to draft a receiver because it's such a deep position. When you think of carrying 6 or 7 players at that position, you always want to draft at least one every single year. So I don't think this changes that. But do you think this changes their mentality into free agency? Whereas, just 3 days ago when we recorded, with the signaling of Cup being gone, and we didn't think Tutu would be back. DeMarcus Robinson, we didn't think would be back. Like, it was literally looking like Puka Nacua and Jordan Whittington. Like, they would have had to have, and I think maybe Xavier Smith is still in the country, but they would have had to get someone in free agency. Now with Tutu back, do you think they don't need to anymore? Do you think they will still? How do you think it affects their approach in free agency, in your opinion?
Well, jumping ahead to the Les Snead conversation, he gave kind of a weird answer about DeMarcus Robinson because mm-hmm. of his potential legal troubles stemming from the DUI that happened last season. So that part isn't guaranteed, according to Les Snead, from what he said. So, I mean, I don't think they go after it. I don't think they chase a wide receiver in the draft or in free agency. You think they're content with Nacua,
Tutu Atwell, and Xavier Smith going into the draft?
like I was saying about the flooded talent, out there. I mean, chasing somebody like Chris Godwin, like seems pretty rich at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Darius Slayton, I still like this idea. I think that would be a good guy to go after. Deontay Johnson, again, I like what he offers. So there's guys out there. It's just, I don't know what fill me in with your opinion, and maybe I can come up with a better one than I have right now, which is no, but maybe.
Yeah. Well, I think they will. I think they will certainly sign someone. And I think you agree with me on this. Like, I've always been in my opinion, like, you never want to go into the draft with clear needs. Like, every team does, I think, still have needs, but you don't want to go into it with just like, we have a gaping hole. Like, we don't even have enough players on the roster. So we like are forced to draft this position. Like, that's not a good draft strategy to go with that. And obviously you're going to quote unquote fill needs in the draft, but you want to more be filling kind of wants and guys that you can develop into positions you think will be needs later on down the line. Now, last year, it worked out like they really needed defensive line because they didn't do it in free agency. And we said all last offseason, like, you don't want to go in the draft with these needs. And it worked out to where they got Jared Verse and Braden Fisk, and they ended up being all world rookies. But that's not a strategy you want to take because you're going to have draft classes like this 21 class. Tutu Atwell is the first signing of the 21 class. No one else will be back. Technically, Bobby Brown is still potentially, but it seems like they're kind of moving on. No one from the 2020 class was re-signed. So you're talking every class, everyone talks about the Rams great in the draft, which they historically have been really good and lately have been really, really good. But it's not a guarantee. And so you don't want to go into that like, oh, we got 3 receivers on the roster. We're going to go to the draft and hope we just hit a home run on 3 receivers in the draft. So long-winded as usual. I think for sure they'll sign someone. The question is, which you were alluding to, is are they going to go after a big fish to pair with Puka Nacua? We talked about kind of that Batman Robin ideology of, you got to have a true wide receiver 1, and then you kind of have a Robin to that Batman. Are they going to go after a true 2 like that? Or are they going to go after literally like a wide receiver 3, 4, 5 realm that can kind of just fill and spot and have a specific role? That's what I'm really curious what they'll do. And that's what, I don't know, because you look at the list even, I mean, Skinny, it's like, it's a flooded list of a lot of players, but like, there's not someone that I'm just like, that guy should be a Ram. Like, he just would fit so perfectly. And there's like, we talked, I think a few episodes ago about potential, but I don't, considering what Puka's role is, considering now they brought back Tutu, considering the potential of Jordan Whittington. I didn't say Jordan Whittington earlier. Obviously he's back, but like, does Devontae Adams, do they want to spend? Does he really fit? Or is he more of a repetitiveness of what Puka Nacua is? Like, is he really adding a dimension? That I don't know, but I do think they will add someone.
Yeah. And I guess within free agency, one of the things that comes up in my mind is they're limited a bit because they can't go, they can't offer a 3-year contract to a top end guy. So if they do want to chase that, and the reason I say they can't is because eventually they're going to have to pay very soon. They're going to have to pay Puka Nacua, Kobe Turner,
Byron Young,
maybe Byron Young, and then we're talking 2-3 years. Some players are going to get really, really expensive. So I think 1 year short term deal for, maybe one of these veterans makes sense, like a Mike Williams or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's just a tough one it's a tough one to understand where they want to go, just because this offense has a potential to look very different.
Mm-hmm.
And there's always that Allen Robinson hanging in the back of my head where it was like, on paper it looked great. Like Cooper Kupp was asking them to go get Allen Robinson specifically. That's a detail we forget, but it seems to make sense, but does it actually make sense? And they have a lot of cap space, and they're going to have a lot more cap space after Kupp leaves. But it's like, there's several needs on this team still. And so, yeah, I'm on the fence. I I could see it, and I could see them not going for it.
Yeah.
I don't know, but I think going back to your point, Batman Robin, this league you need more than one guy. So I'm sure they know that.
Yeah. Yeah. I would think. But I do agree with you too. I think that it's going to be a 1 to 2 year deal. Because, like you said, there's going to be some hefty contracts coming up here in the next kind of 2 years. What do you think of, Kobe Turner, Byron Young, Puka Nacua, all the same class. So all three look right now warranted to get a second contract. The Rams historically in the last decade have not retained guys from draft classes. I don't even know the number, but it's, like I said, Tutu's the first of 21. None of 2020 got a second contract. 2019, I'm trying to think off the top of my head, but it's rare that guys get a second contract. And part of that is just some of the guys haven't worked out. But part of that is the Rams then kind of take a different approach and they don't want to like go overpay or whatnot because they've overpaid in other realms. So I agree with you. You don't want to go give an Amari Cooper or Stephon Diggs or even a Devontae Adams a 3-4 year, $60 million deal because in 2 years, you're just back where we are right now. Like, well, I guess they're cutting all these guys and starting over to sign these guys. So, which they can do. They show that they can move the money around. Which I think this leads us then into our next conversation, which we can kind of wrap the episode with this. And Les Snead in his press conference or media availability, whatever you want to call it, talked about the future and talked about what we've been saying now for 2 years of what is the succession plan going to be for Matthew Stafford. They took care of that. Great. Stafford's back. They have this window with Stafford, but they also don't want to be in that QB purgatory like we've talked about. So before we get into it, I'll let you can just break down kind of what he said. I know you wrote an article about it as well, and then we'll talk about what we think that looks like.
Yeah, so I'll just quote the man himself, Les Snead himself. He says, "I do think part of the equation, that's the hardest part of the equation. It's one thing to identify the QB; it's another to actually be able to acquire him. Let's say we did, that person could learn under Matthew Stafford. That would probably only be beneficial. Even if we did, even if we identified somebody, sometimes it's hard to acquire them. And then you get into, okay, wait a minute, we do have Stafford. We want to chase special may be somebody. He's a hard guy to read. Sorry, guys. We want to chase special, whatever special may be. So maybe it's best at the moment to draft another player or keep going that way. You're always balancing those two things, but finding the next QB, that one is easier said than done. I think basically says, look at what Green Bay's done at that point. So, yeah. They recognize the challenge that's out in front of them, and they know that they're in a weird place, I guess, is the only thing I can say about that.
Well, I think we can it's safe to say they don't believe Stetson Bennett is the QB of the future. So I think we can put that to bed, which we kind of knew since he was drafted, but there were many holding on hope that he was the future. I think that things can change, but based on those comments, they're looking for someone else.
It kind of also, like, from what he's saying is Matthew Stafford is now a bridge quarterback.
Yeah. But it's that age old question of, like, do you want to take a guy, and maybe we're talking, I guess, specifically at the draft now at this point, not free agency. Do you want to take a guy what feels to be too early when you have a Super Bowl window instead of getting like some blue chip prospect in the first round or early second round, but take your quarterback that then can develop for a year or two? Or do you go all in on getting that blue chip guy to win now, but then potentially end up in a bad quarterback position in a year or two? And it's hard to say because I've seen both sides, right? Like, everyone uses the Green Bay analogy, which is so true. But the reality of it, they've had 35 years almost of great quarterback play, and they have 2 Super Bowls total to show for it in those 2. Now, 2 Super Bowls I'm not saying that's easy to get, but Brett Favre had 1, Aaron Rodgers had 1. It wasn't like they had like this dynasty of success. Now we'll see what Jordan Love ends up becoming in terms of the Super Bowl potential. But you can, when you use that example, it's like, yeah, that's great. They have had great quarterback play, but it's not like they've won Super Bowls. Like, I think if a team wins 3 in Super Bowls in 5 years and all of a sudden is in QB purgatory for 4 years, you'd probably take that in reality. But you also have the other side of it, like similar to like the Broncos. You win a Super Bowl, your backup plan bails and hits free agency, and then you end up in QB purgatory for like almost a decade. That's a long time to be in that purgatory. And the Rams,
in the Broncos example, I mean, they really kind of lucked out. I mean, it's kind of a rare with Bo Nix.
Yeah. Well, I think what's different about the Rams than, say, the Broncos or some of these other teams like the Browns, who didn't win a Super Bowl, but they've been in QB purgatory forever. But the Rams have the benefit of, unless he decides to retire, of having Sean McVay, their great coach in place. The Broncos, for example, their coach retired the next year due to health reasons. Like, Gary Kubiak was great. I think if he would have stayed as coach, they probably would have alleviated some of that. But all of a sudden, he retires out of nowhere, and then they have a coaching carousel for 6 years, also trying to pair of quarterbacks. So it was just a mess. And now when they get Sean Payton, you have the guy like, okay, this is the quarterback I look for. Obviously, he got who he want, and it worked out. So the Rams have that benefit, I think, of it wouldn't be like a decade because of Sean McVay. But it still is that, like, what decision do you want to do? Because let's just say this, Skinny. They're at 26, right? I like this guy, and we're going to get more in the draft talk here after free agency. But if they're sitting at 26 and Jackson Dart's there, like, it'd be hard for me not to take him. And I know Rams fans will be like, well, you just waste a first-round pick. Like, what if there's a receiver there? Luther Bowden's there. The Missouri kid is really talented. Some of these other receivers. What if one of these tight end falls to there? I mean, all these different prospects. Do you feel that? And I'm not asking you. And then I'll toss it to you. But just as a hypothetical, like, would they feel like that player, because gives them enough to win right now this year, versus getting the quarterback potentially the future? Because the other thought of it is, let's just say Luther Bowden, the receiver, let's just say he's there. If they don't think he's going to elevate them that much this year, he's more of a, hey, this is a great prospect that will obviously participate this year, but he's more of a year 2, 3, 4 guy. Then what difference is taking a quarterback right now? But if it's like a Jared Verse pick, it's like, this guy's going to come in and win Defensive Rookie of the Year and be like an impact player from day one, then that's a big decision. So I'm rambling, getting a long decision, but like, I guess I'll just toss it to you. Like, what do you do if someone like a Jackson Dart's there at 26?
You take him if you like him. I mean, I always think about this when, people like us talk about like which quarterback to take. People are making millions of dollars, spending millions of dollars trying to figure out who the next, Tom Brady is or whatever. And they fail constantly. The hit rate's ridiculously low, So yeah. I don't know. There's nice things from Dart. So I'll just defer it to them. But if you like the guy at 26, yeah, I don't know if he's going to make it there though. There's a lot of QB needy teams out there that might be willing to take a chance on it. And this like points out what Les Snead is trying to say about easier said than done, is that like, it's going to cost you. So it's either going to cost you a year of winning, so that you've got a high draft pick, or it's going to cost you in trading up to go get that guy, which they did for Jared Goff. Or it's going to cost you with a trade. I mean, there's not a lot of situations where this is resolved without taking some pretty harsh medicine. Mm-hmm. And I think this Rams stretch has been luck for the quarterback position. Now, obviously they paid to go get Goff, but then pairing him with McVay and the success that they had, and then just the luck of new regime in Detroit. Matthew Stafford wants out. McVay's ready to move on, and they also have the draft capital in place to make that trade. Like all of that, all of those moving parts came together for the Stafford trade to be able to happen. And that just doesn't materialize. It's not like they can just manifest that out of nowhere and they go to, they say to Cincinnati tomorrow, hey, it looks like Joe Burrow's a little upset. What about a trade? They're kick rocks. It's just, you're not gonna find that situation every year that just so happens to come together. So it's
Here,
go ahead.
Here's another case study, another example. And it's a little different because Stafford has won a Super Bowl here. But I think this is a more in line case study than maybe some of the others we brought up. When you look at the Kansas City Chiefs, in 2016, they went 11-4, obviously made the playoffs. Alex Smith was a Pro Bowler that year. 3,500 yards. He was only 32 years old. Chiefs were drafting 26 or 25 in the draft. They trade up to take Pat Mahomes at 10. They traded up. So they're in a Super Bowl window with Alex Smith, Pro Bowl QB, 32 years old, 5 years younger than Stafford, coming off a great season. Trade up, so give up a first-round pick, plus some, draft Pat Mahomes. That season, Pat Mahomes sits. Alex Smith has an even better year. Throws for 4,000 yards. I think he threw like 20 touchdowns to like 5 interceptions. Chiefs go to the playoffs again, obviously. Well, then that year, they move on from Alex Smith. We know, unfortunately, he goes to Washington, gets injured. They trade him. Pat Mahomes becomes a starter his second year, and obviously the rest is history. Best quarterback in the NFL. I'm not saying a guy like Jackson Dart is that, but if you believe that the future can be brighter than what the present is, as hard as that is to imagine, and the fact that they would not give Stafford more than a 1-year deal, the fact that they were hard-pressed to not do that, tells me that they would be willing, not saying they will, but they would be willing to use this first-round pick potentially on the quarterback of the future. Because if they thought, hey, we got Stafford, obviously they talk extensively, we got 2 to 3 year window, why would you not give him a 2 to 3 year deal? I know we've been against that, but if they believe that, hey, this is our guy for 2 to 3 years, what's holding them back from a 2-3 year deal? Whereas you give him only 1 year deal, then why would you not go get your quarterback of the future too? Then you don't have to do this song and dance every year. It's going to be 38 next year, going to be 39. So, I mean, I think that kind of dictates a little bit. They are willing potentially to get their quarterback. Not saying they're going to trade up, and not saying, again, Dart or Shedeur Sanders or Cam Ward is that guy. But that year, everyone now doesn't remember, Pat Mahomes was considered a second-round prospect. He was I'm going to toot my own horn here. He was my number one QB prospect. Yeah, that was the year Mitch Trubisky went first, Deshaun Watson went second, and then they traded up and took Mahomes. But at the time, all through the draft process, there was a lot of people that wanted the Browns, who had picked 33, the second pick in the first or in the second round, to take Mahomes in the second round. That's where he was getting mocked a lot. Chiefs trade up. They saw something different. Obviously, we know that. So they could see something from one of these guys that the draft pundits don't see and be like, no, this guy's got something. He's going to sit for a year behind Stafford. We only got Stafford for 1 year. Let's go out and try to win the Super Bowl this year. And then moving forward, we're doing that. So I think it's more possible than people think.
Yeah, and to kind of go on the opposite side, the complete opposite, trade up and go get a quarterback you think is going to be the stud. You look at San Francisco; they trade up and they go get Trey Lance, and
yeah,
he's off the team. I mean, he's I don't know if he's on a roster right now. I think he's a free agent. Yeah. But you look at how the Rams view the draft specifically, and the reason they accumulate a lot of draft picks is because they believe in this kind of dart throw, bites at the apple, whatever you want to call it. The more chances you get, you increase your probability of hitting on a guy. So you look at the 2023 draft, they have 11, 12 picks, something crazy like that.
Yeah.
and they hit on several guys, and they didn't have a first rounder that year. Just to remind everybody,
Yeah.
if you could possibly forget that, but they got several quality starters out of that draft because of this. So if you think about the bites of the apple that they've taken to try to secure the next quarterback, it's one. They've drafted Stetson Bennett. Now they brought in several guys that, obviously they believed in, Bryce Perkins and Bryce Perkins. Is that his name?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Bryce Perkins, John Wolford, they bring in, they brought in several guys. But this is where the rubber meets the road, and they have to take a quarterback. And if it's in the first round, if they think Jackson Dart is the dude to do that, I think they need to go after him. Even if that is a trade up, Dane Brugler has him, rated as his 57th prospect across all draft prospects. Dane Brugler says he needs time to develop, but also has this list of intangibles that just he seems like a ram. So I'm kind of leaning, I'm buying into this idea. But you look at, maybe they don't like anybody in this year, which kicks the can down to drafting next year, which is you can't they have to take somebody at this point. They don't have a second rounder right now.
Yeah.
Les Snead doesn't like to be in the 20s, called it purgatory. It's everything's pointing towards a first round quarterback, I feel like.
Well, last year,
or trading back and getting one in the second or third.
Yeah, for sure. Trading back, I think, is very much on the table. Last year we stuck to our guns. They were going to take an edge player. We kept, we were mocking Latu, who obviously went a few picks before. I think also we had defensive line in there.
1, 2. Yeah.
Byron Murphy, I think, was the other guy we were looking at, who Seattle took, again, a pick before, 2 picks before. And there was a lot of chatter leading up that, they were potentially going to take an offensive lineman, or they were looking at weapons. And there was absolutely fire to the smoke of them trading up for Brock Bowers. That was very real. But we kind of stuck with nope, the absolute need is some sort of pass rusher or some other interior, because they just don't have it. And so they did that, surprisingly. The Rams never do what anyone thinks they're going to do, but they took the position of need, and it obviously worked out. So maybe this year we'll see. We'll see, Skinny. I mean, we'll get in the draft talk, like we said, a lot more in depth once free agency passes next week. But maybe this is the year where we just go all in and say it's going to be a quarterback in the first round. People are going to hate us, because I know no Rams fan want to see them use a pick on a quarterback this year when they're, chasing a Super Bowl. But they got to eventually. And do you believe, not saying you, but do you believe Tyler Shuck or one of these guys in the 4th or 5th round as actual potential value? And everyone will point to Brock Purdy and Russell Wilson and Tom Brady and this, but it's that's not a strategy. That's luck. I don't care what any coach or GM says, yeah, that was our guy. We knew that was our guy. No, if you knew he was that guy, you would have taken him in the first round. You just got lucky that, you threw a dart at the board in the 5th round, and all of a sudden the guy was pretty dang good. So,
and that's why you got to do it. I mean, a lot of people mocked the Falcons for their strategy, and it's working out okay, because Kirk Cousins apparently was playing with an injury, but did not work out. Michael Penix didn't look fantastic, but at least they got somebody back there, and it still may or may not work out, but you got to take the chance. Philadelphia Eagles taking Jalen Hurts as well.
Yeah.
It's kind of a similar.
Carson Wentz was still their guy.
Yeah. And so there's something to it, and Jordan Love was taken by the Green Bay Packers. If you want to talk about what Les Snead was talking about, pointing towards the Green Bay Packers, you got to pay up for that quarterback. Whether it's late first round, second round, take 2 quarterbacks. I don't know.
Yeah. It's hard. Yeah. It's hard just because of that window with Stafford and his age. But again, I just think back to that Kansas City Chiefs analogy. And Alex Smith was 32, Pro Bowl season.
But this is the model. This is how you have to do it if
Yeah.
you want to have sustained success, or take a year off, just clear everything off, trade every asset you have away, just build up cap and everything, and end up with a first or second pick.
Yeah.
That's an option.
I mean, because not to get like dark here, but I mean, look at the Patriots, right? Like all of a sudden Brady leaves. They had no plan at quarterback. A year later, people are questioning, like, is Belichick actually that good of a coach? Was it just Brady all along? Like, now we know, I think, pulling back, like, yeah, it just, they had some down years after that, but he ends up essentially getting fired. I think the report was it was a mutual decision, but essentially they were a dumpster. They've now gone through another coach, now got on Mike Vrabel. I mean, there's a perfect example. Like, they actually had a plan in place with Jimmy Garoppolo, but Brady decided he wanted to play like a decade longer. And so look at them. The Patriots go from this dynasty team to a bottom barrel team in the NFL and showing no real, I mean, we'll see what Drake May becomes with another new coach, but I mean, we see it time and time again. If you don't have that next guy ready, unfortunately, it's such an important position, the most important position in all of sports. I mean, you really can go down bad. And I don't think the Rams are going to do that, but I just think it's very real. Like the Rams, and this is the year where they're going to address it. Based on Snead's comments, this to me, Skinny, and we've been covering this team a long time now, and we talk about this specific topic now for almost 2 years. This is the first time I've really heard Snead say, like, yeah, we have to like address this, and it's easier said than done. Like, it's very much on the radar. In the past, it was just like they kind of just shoot it off, right? Like, oh yeah, we'll take Stetson Bennett in the fourth, or we're confident in John Walford if we need him and we need to call his name. Like, it was always like we're confident in who we have in the room. This is the first time I've heard Snead be like, yeah, this, like, it's gonna be tough. It's an uphill battle. We got to address it.
Yeah, 100%. And you don't win. You don't win if you don't have a quarterback. I don't care how good Jared Verse is ever going to be. You don't win.
Yeah. Yep. 100%. So, well, it's going to be fascinating. And free agency, we will starts this week, or this, I should say, Monday is the tampering period. As I kind of tease, Skinny and I are probably going to do multiple shows depending on what the Rams do. If they're real active, we'll do multiple shows throughout the week. We'll have tons and tons of articles up. We still need we'll have like a free agency tracker that everyone can watch. We'll bookmark that. If it gets you coming back to the website, great. That'd be amazing. So all of that can be found at LAFBnetwork.com. The YouTube is Rams LAFB. Hit that subscribe button. Certainly helps us out a ton. And if you're on podcast platform, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast, just search Rams Skinny. So excited to get into free agency. I mean, the offseason almost goes faster than the season. I can't believe it's already tampering period starting next week.
Yeah.
Insane.
It's incredible. Yeah. All these cuts and people requesting trades. I mean, things are coming at me fast.
Yeah.
Trying to keep up.
Flying hard. So, well, great. Well, Skinny, always a pleasure. Good seeing you. Thank you all for tuning in, making us a party today. It means the world to us. Everyone stay dry out there in LA. Kind of enjoy this cool weather before spring is officially here. But we'll talk to all of you next week during free agency. Excited to get into it. Everyone enjoy your weekend. Talk to y'all soon.